Hey creators, welcome back to the club. We are going to be talking today about a nonprofit called Kids in the Spotlight and their effect on the foster youth. We're your hosts. I'm your host, Ebony Chapman.
I'm Akila Friend.
Yes, and you guys, let's give an amazing, warm welcome to the founder of the nonprofit organization called Kids in the Spotlight and the author of Not Your 9 to 5 Girl, Tigé Charity.
Hey, Tigé.
Hello. Learning to celebrate and shout for myself.
Yes.
Hi there. How are you?
We're good.
Really good. I am so excited to have you here today. I think that you are doing such important work that I feel like doesn't ever get talked about, like people working in those like nonprofit, charitable communities. And there's so many people that actually need help. I mean, the number that you gave us just in the county, go ahead and share how many foster youth are in the county of Los Angeles.
Well, in LA County, we have over 35,000 kids in the foster care system just in our county. And that's more youth than some cities or some states have as a whole. And I like to reference it by telling people, at least in LA County, if you've ever been to the Los Angeles Staples Center, imagine the Staples Center filled every seat with a youth that's in foster care. Not just once, but twice, enough to fill that stadium twice. It's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids. And that's kind of why we wanted to talk to you today about it. Because just to, again, like I mentioned the title of your nonprofit, Kids in the Spotlight, but we really want to have the spotlight on you, especially, someone who was able to start this nonprofit from the ground up, have a core sense of what they wanted to do and how they wanted to make this change in a specific part of our community. And I mean, it's important. It's important to talk about. So we're so excited to do that with you today.
Thank you. And it's actually one of my favorite things to talk about. So we're in good company today.
All right.
Perfect. So we know that you've been doing this for 12 amazing years of service. So please tell the people and like the listeners, people who are watching, like how you even got started, like creating this program.
Wow. Well, I always tell people that's a loaded question because several things happened. It wasn't just this one thing, but I think it was this progression of things that occurred. I was visiting an all-girls group home with my husband, who's an actor. He was teaching with a theater group that he was a part of. They were teaching this acting class, and he asked me to accompany him this particular visit. And I was like, sure, yeah, I'll go and hang out for a little bit. And while I'm there, I'm watching these girls. And it's the first time I'd ever been exposed to the foster care system up close and personal. I don't think I'd ever met any kid or anyone who had been impacted by the foster care system. So while we were there, we began to tour the facility, and the director of the mentoring program took us through the dorm room. And as we walked through the dorm rooms, there were these twin-size beds, and above the beds were individual pictures and like dresser drawers underneath the beds. And it was about 4 beds in this very small room. And I thought, wow, like they have to share this space with people in and out all the time. And this is their personal space, like above the bed and dresser drawers underneath. And so it really cracked my heart, like literally wide open. And I started to think, wow, I was blessed. I was fortunate to be raised in a home with a mother and a father, and here these kids are in foster care for no fault of their own. So, that was my initial reaction. And then as we continued to tour the facility, I noticed a group of girls sort of, kind of acting out, I call it. And I had a judgment, like this moment of judgment. Why are these kids misbehaving? Company is present, And the minute I had that thought, I had another thought, like instantly, that said that I got a check. I call it a check in my spirit. These kids aren't acting out. These kids are just asking for attention. Yes, they know company is present and they want attention. So I asked the mentor, what could I do to give back? And she said, well, we always need really good mentors. And I was thinking, I'm coming from this place of sympathy. Like I have this overwhelming feeling of just sympathy towards these kids. And I know that's not what they need, because they could ask me for pretty much anything and I'll try to make it happen to compensate for the fact that they're in foster care, right? So I was like, I don't know, let me think about it. And I thought about it occasionally, but I did nothing. I never reached back out. And 2 years after that, my church was doing a series called Discovering God's Dream for Your Life. And I was one of those people at the time was like, I don't want to talk about purpose anymore. You know, I got this 9-to-5 job that I hate. Okay. I'm sick doing insurance. Like so I was at just a really bad place emotionally and spiritually. And I just wasn't trying to hear a message about purpose, that God had a purpose for all of us and a plan, whatever. So as I was rebelling against that, we were also going through a time in our economy where we were going through a recession. And so for the first time in my 16, 17-year career, I was laid off from my corporate job. And it was, I'd never been involuntarily unemployed before. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like, what are we going to do? And so I learned about, the unemployment system. And when I found out at the time they were giving, $475 a week, I'm like, I can't live off 400. Like, what is this? So I started having all these crazy things going on, just mentally thinking about it and just having these emotional breakdowns. And one night I had a powwow with God. I call it a temper tantrum. I was just at my breaking point. I'm like, I'm unemployed. I can get another job in insurance. I know that I can because of my background, my experience. I didn't want to. So that's where, the struggle started to come emotionally. I just didn't want to go back into that environment, into that 9-to-5 corporate environment. And then my church is doing this series called Discovering Purpose. I'm like, God, if there's a purpose for me, I'm going to need you to speak. I'm going to need you to speak tonight. Like, I need you to tell me something because I just can't do this anymore. Like, I was at my wits' end. And I was so glad my husband wasn't home because he would have thought I had lost my natural born mind. Okay. Because when I tell you, I was crying and acting a fool. And after I finished crying, I, just settled down. And after I settled down in my spirit, I felt like I just heard the voice of God remind me of those girls that I had met a few years prior. And to me, it was just as clear as day. Give them something you love. They wanted to be seen. Give them a platform to tell their stories their way. Allow them to write, cast, and star in their own short films. But don't stop there. You got to celebrate them in a huge way. So you need to have sort of this, at the time we called it Movies by Kids, for Kids event where people come out and watch the films and give them awards for best film, best actor, best screenplay, like the Academy Awards for kids in foster care. And when that vision came, I literally jumped out of my bed and I grabbed my journal. And I'm really not one to journal. I have one. I tell everybody this. I have a journal because it's the thing to do. Everybody's got a journal. So you got to have a journal. So I grabbed my journal and I began to write the vision down. Kids in the Spotlight, a platform for kids in foster care to basically heal and grow from trauma through the power of storytelling and filmmaking. And I was like, okay, God, and I have to share this vision with my husband because this means I'm not really going to go look for another job. I'm about to start something new. And the next day I shared it with him and he was like, wow, that sounds like God. And the rest is history. Wow. Here we are.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I told you it was a loaded question, right?
It was amazing. It was amazing. That story, honestly, look, I was listening to it and I was like, oh my, just it like hit me because I've been telling like some of my friends that I've been talking to, and I'm like, to find that purpose and that energy that like gets you up in the morning. I was like, I've watched The Last Dance and this other like gospel like choir show on Netflix and cried to both because I was like, the energy, the magnitude of purpose or feeling of competition and just like you were home type feeling is something to be awed at and amazed. So I'm so happy that you were able to like come to this vision and talk to God about it because it is so important.
Yes. And people don't talk about, I love how in that too, that you spoke about the moment too, because people say it happens. People say, there's a certain revelation when you finally find your purpose and you have your rhythm and you know what you want to do. But for you to be in that moment and to be so vulnerable and to share with us, no, this was the day. And I remember it distinctly. And this is how I was feeling. And I cried. That is what people need to know. And I think that's what everyone needs to know when it comes to finding your purpose. It may come later in life. It may come, at a drop of a hat. It may, you know, the night itself, it was incredible. I just loved hearing that, because that's what I can only imagine, and I can only hope that for everyone to have that same sort of feeling and to run with it like you did. That's incredible.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. It was definitely a turning point in my life. And it's still, it's still evolving. We're still, and I believe God gives us things in stages, because when he first gave me the vision of Kids in the Spotlight, I don't think I know I didn't have the vision in its totality. And now, I mean, God is just planting all these things. The next step is a production studio for a cause, which is a social enterprise. Then after that, it's a boarding academy for kids in foster. And I'm like, wait, hold up. Like, I'm still shocked I was able to do this one thing. Now you're stretching me to do this. So it's, I think he gives us things in seasons, and he give it to us when we're at a stage where we can handle it. Mm-hmm. So it's just an interesting journey. But I tell people all the time, for answers, go to the manufacturer. And for me, God is my manufacturer. He created me. He knows me better than anyone. And he knows, he knows the beginning and the end. So that's where I draw from.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you kind of mentioned it when we were talking, when you gave the background of how you got to this point, but I just want to make it plain for folks as well. Can you just give a synopsis of what Kids in the Spotlight is, what you do on the day-to-day?
Yeah, because we don't want people to miss that part of what it is that you do. I know we said entertainment and writing and producing, but we want people to really know.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, so basically, through storytelling and filmmaking, we provide this year-round 10 to 15-week program where, again, our youth write, cast, and star in their own short films, basically allowing them to rewrite the narratives of their story, because kids in foster care have been neglected, they've been rejected, they've been abused, they've been abandoned. I mean, there are just so many negative things that they have gone through, and that's not every foster youth, but there are way too many that have. And the mere fact that you are in foster care is trauma in and of itself. So we are helping them sort of rewrite the narrative and write the ending for their story. And through this, like I said, 10 to 15 week year-round program, we go into group homes and work with kids 12 to 22 years old. In the group home, they're 12 to 17. Our older group are 18 to 22. So we do those programs at studios like Warner Brothers Studios and NBC Universal Studios. But basically, we go into these group homes for the younger group, and we take our own computers that are equipped with Final Draft, which is a software that industry professionals use to write scripts. We hire writing mentors who can stick with the program for the complete 5-week time frame, because the writing portion is 5 weeks. After the 5 weeks of writing, they transition into 3 weeks of acting, which they really get to talk about the characters that they wrote about in their scripts. Because a lot of these kids are writing stories, again, that's based on their own life and their experiences. So the acting portion really gets to the therapeutic part of what we do, because now you get to talk about, well, what made that character behave the way it behaved? Like, what's the trigger? What's the thing that caused them to laugh when you say this, or to cry when you say that? So they're really thinking deep about their own emotional intelligence. And so from the 3 weeks of acting, we transition into casting. So just because they wrote the script does not automatically mean they get to star in the script. They have to audition in front of each other. So they all become casting directors. And for the older roles, we hold casting sessions and invite industry professionals to come in and audition in front of the youth. So the youth work alongside of a professional filmmaking director, and they cast their film. After the casting session, the last week is production. So on one particular day, we go in and turn the agency where they live into a production studio. And we take over for an entire day and shoot their project with industry professionals, a professional director, crew people, actors. We partner with CBS Studios, who provide lighting and grip. I mean, we've made some amazing partnerships where we get wardrobe from Warner Brothers Studios, and just the amazing support of industry folks. And we shoot those films in one day. And generally it's 2 to 3 films in a day. We're doing them simultaneously all at the same time because these group homes sit on acres of land. Okay. So you may have one set shooting one film, and the other side of the campus, they're shooting a different film. And then somewhere else on the campus, they're shooting a film. And then we have this common area for craft services and breakfast and lunch. So it's a film production. And we do that over and over and over throughout the year. And towards the end of the year, we have what's called a judging session where we take all the films that were completed, because we do most of the editing. We do all of that in-house. Although we do teach the kids some parts of editing toward the last 5 weeks of the program. So if they choose to go on for the full 15 weeks, then that's editing, where they get to take some of the footage and make little sound bites or commercials or trailers for their films. But we bring the films in and we professionally have them edited and packaged so the youth don't see them until the Kids Awards. But prior to the Kids Awards, we have the judging session. So we take these films, we invite industry professionals. The last 2 years, we've been, where were we? NBC Universal is where we did the judging session. And industry professionals come in, we have a ballot. It's a very, what do you say, secure and what's the word I'm looking for when you don't share with someone else?
Creative or, I think
it's a particular word I'm looking for, but anyway, it's a private session where you're not sharing your ballot with anyone else. So they vote, we get the ballot, and we tally up the votes to see who won best film, best actor, best screenplay, and we present it at the Kids Awards. So the kids see the films for the first time at the awards with an audience of celebrities and friends and family, and then they find out who won what awards. So that's how the program works.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Because I know that I looked on the website, here at the Black Creators Club, we like to do our research. So you were saying that there's over 75 films that you've done, more than over 500 youth that have come through this program, yes, which is amazing. And I think what you also said was that you film on the group home lot.
Yes.
Is that what I heard?
Yes. Mm-hmm. We turn the group homes into movie sets.
Which is amazing. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I was featured in one of the films.
That's where this is going. Just you did this,
okay.
And
I love it.
But I was, and so I did not know that was a group home lot where we were, and it was huge. Yeah. I mean, it was really big. They have upstairs, they have different rooms, and so it's nice because then I feel like the children or the youth are able to feel more comfortable because they're already where they're at. So I think that's a great, an amazing thing that you are able to do because the lots are so big.
That's what our younger group, our 12 to 17, and some that are 18 are still in group homes. But for our 18 to 22-year-olds, we actually go out and find production studios to shoot. And that's one of the things we're working on, to create our own production studio, and which will eliminate that problem. But yeah, we go out and look for studios and we shoot in studios for our 18 to 22-year-olds.
I think one of the bigger themes here, and thank you for that breakdown. And this is why we knew we had to ask that specifically, because the breadth of things that you have been able to do and sustainably do over 12 plus years at this point, it's, I mean, I know we keep saying it's incredible because it is. It really is. It really is that innovative and incredible. But a theme that I see kind of going throughout all of this, whether, as you mentioned, working with a lot of the major studios, being able to utilize the group home lots and things of that nature, or creating your own in the future, is that idea of community and using community to really make something happen for this this nonprofit. So can you just talk a little bit more about, for folks who may want to do something like you that you're doing, or are just odd, to learn more about how are you able to utilize community to get what you needed done?
Well, it's interesting because we're in Hollywood, and Hollywood for a long time has been the film capital of the world, and then Mr. Tyler Perry came up and changed all of that because Atlanta is booming. Okay, but when you look at the foster care system and the economy and what it takes to provide services for kids in foster care, youth, one would consider that sort of that is a, what do you say, secure and secure and what is the word I'm looking for when you don't share with someone else?
Creative.
Secure and secure and what is the word I'm looking for when you don't share with someone else? I don't want to say a liability, but that drains your economy. That's money going into, money going out of, I should say. You're spending money, taxpayers' dollars to, build institutions, to pay for, services for homelessness and all of these things, which directly impact the foster care system. But then you have this lucrative entity, which is the entertainment industry, that creates this resource and funding stream that, could really change the trajectory of this system that sort of drains the economy in a sense. So for me, bringing, a need and finding a solution, because the solution is always in the people. We are the solution. So it's finding that connection of bringing these two entities together to make a sustainable and lasting impact. And I tell people all the time, you have to find, I tell people all the time, it takes a village. Let's say that. You have to find your village. You have to, and I was really blessed because at the time I started it, I was going to a church that had, a lot of entertainment professionals there. And I started telling them, like, look, I got this vision of doing this, and I need your expertise. Like, you're a director, right? I need you to direct one of these films. You're an editor, right? I need you to edit one of these films. You work at Warner Brothers? Okay, they have props, right? It's starting to go out and find what people have. And then also, how can I be of service to you? Like my producer of the Kids Awards, she produced the Kids Awards for pretty much, I think, 10 or 11 years. And when she started out with her first production, I was a casting director for her. So I had a service that she could utilize, and then she has a skill set and experience that I could utilize. And we found ways to work together to help each other.
Yeah, that's amazing, because that's literally what I was going to ask. Like, how do we make this partnership happen and last? Because, the entertainment industry can be hard to break into. And then to know that, let's not mention the fact that you have celebrity sponsorships or ambassadors for Kids in the Spotlight, which is another amazing way to propel your message. So I know there's Ty Burrell from Modern Family. There's Tika Sumpner. I know Sherry Shepherd has came and partnered with some of the events as well. I'm sure there's a long list of celebrities that we can go through. But I think that that's amazing. And so that was literally my question. Like, how do you get those partnerships? Because it is hard to reach out to celebrities when you said that your background was in finance. So there you go. You went to church. Go to church, girl.
Yeah. And for me, it's such a meaningful way for entertainment industry professionals to give back, who may not have the time to go out and start their own nonprofit, but they want to make a difference. Like Ty Burrell. Ty Burrell's father was a social worker, and he died when Ty was relatively young, or his father was relatively young when he died. And so he wanted to find a way to give back in a meaningful way. And so this made sense for him. So he comes, and every now and then he teaches an acting class. He is our host for the Kids Awards. He's been our host for probably 6-7 years now. So you find things that can feed the soul of the people that are working with you without having to necessarily drain them in a sense, but something that gives them purpose, something that makes them excited as well. And so that's sort of how we, reached out. And it's funny because when we invite these industry professionals to the Kids Awards, I tell people all the time, seeing is believing. So when they show up for the Kids Awards, and they actually see the films, and they see the youth, because the youth go on stage, they accept the awards, and they just see the pureness and the vulnerability and just the gratitude that these kids have, it breaks their hearts. And so they're like, wait, what can I do? How can I get involved? That's how Tika got involved. She was invited to be one of the presenters. And afterwards, she made this Instagram post that said something like, tonight just blew my mind. She was like, I just met this organization, and this is what happened. We didn't ask her to do that. She did that on her own. Malcolm Jamal Warner, the same. We have an event coming up where he's the moderator. He stood on stage and literally said, I have cried this entire night. And he asked, why am I just hearing about this organization? And I couldn't wait until the event was over to tell him, y'all celebrities got gatekeepers, right?
That's real. Let's talk about that.
Y'all got gatekeepers, right? I'm like, it ain't always easy knocking on those doors. But when we can get them to show up, just show up and see what we're doing. A lot of times that's the thing that changes their hearts, because they get to see our impact. They feel our impact just by showing up.
You got a gift. You really do have a gift for sifting things out of people. Like, what is their purpose? Like, kind of what are they into? How can I build this relationship? How, again, with the community, how can I make this community work for me, work for you, work for the kids? And I think that's what's really interesting too. And that's a part of when it comes to nonprofit or really starting a business, because even though it's a nonprofit, it's still a business. Right. It's a service-based business that folks need to really understand. Can you deep dive a little bit more on just the mechanics of it all? You running this business, again, with folks who may want to do this, we like to give them tips and tools. You listen to this podcast, you're going to know at the end of this podcast that you learned something. So, if you can give them little tips and tools for how can they potentially get that side of the business going.
Absolutely. So the first thing I did was, after my husband was like, that's a God thing, I looked up this organization called We the People. And We the People is a group of paralegals that provide certain services for you at a fraction of the cost of hiring an attorney. So I went to We the People to find out, how do you start a corporation? How do you get a business incorporated? And so when I went there, they basically talked me through the articles of incorporation and how to file, for starting and launching your business. And so I did that through them, and it was about $500. And I explained, but this is a nonprofit. Like, how do I get my nonprofit status? Because I want this to be an investment that everybody can participate in. And they said, well, you're gonna have to get an attorney for that, because we don't do that. To file the form is $750, and to hire an attorney is about $2,500. I'm like, didn't I tell y'all I was unemployed and getting $475 a week from unemployment? That's not gonna happen, right? How we gonna make that work? And so a friend of mine told me about this book called NOLO, How to Start a Nonprofit in the State of California. That book had absolutely everything I could have possibly asked for and more. If I'd have gotten that book before I went to We the People, I could have just done the articles of incorporation, everything myself, because it has all the forms, everything you need, and it talks to you step by step. So I looked at, as I was reading the book, it had the step-by-step process of how to file a 1023 form for your status. And as I looked at it, I'm like, this is a lot. I understand why attorneys get paid to do this, because it just felt overwhelming. But I knew it was something I had to do. So I called a friend and said, look, I need to come to your place just to get out of my environment. Are you going to be home? She said, you can have the house for a day. I sat in her house for 8 hours, and I went through that entire form and got every bit of exhibit paperwork that I needed to submit that application. And I'd heard so many horror stories about, once when they start asking additional questions, it's really hard to get approved. And it's not the best time to file, to create a nonprofit, because we're going through a recession. You get all of these other things that combat the vision that God has given you, right? And I'm like, nope. This is what I was told to do. I just got to do it and trust that it's going to be all right. And so I submitted that paperwork, and I got approved. So even before the approval, I did a fundraiser at a comedy club called Comedy Union. A friend of mine said he will let you do a fundraiser at no overhead. He'll make his money just off the 2-drink minimal. So you can set your ticket price. You can book your comedians. He'll help you book the comedians too. And I'm like, word? And I did it. I called some of my friends who I'm like, y'all do events, right? Okay, this is what we need to do. We put on an event. It was successful. We raised enough money to buy the computers and start getting the buzz out. And so when I filed for the tax exempt, it's retroactive. So even though I had the event and people were already giving money, as long as you're approved within that year, the people that donated can still get a tax. Can claim it on their taxes. So I did that. So I did that event, I think in June, and I got my status in August. And from there, I started researching. I called the Center for Nonprofit Management. They had a class on running a nonprofit or nonprofit leadership. So I took that. I think it was like a 4-week class, just trying to learn all that I could. while I was there, I saw a card for AJU, American Jewish University, to get a master's in nonprofit management. I'm like, oh, so I filled that out. They called me and I'm like, I'm interested in your program. They told me how much the tuition was. I said, I'm no longer interested in your program. And so, but thankfully, the dean saw something in me that he was persistent. I tell them all the time, he chased me down and he said, I just need you to come to the campus. When I walked on that campus, I just felt like, oh my goodness. It just felt right. So I ended up getting a master's in MBA in nonprofit management. Immediately after I graduated, I started teaching at AJU, a class on the fundamentals of nonprofit management. So yeah, all of my answers are so long. God, it's not nothing. It's just simple, right? It's always a story behind the story.
But we want the story
but that's
behind the story.
That's what we're here for. Tell us the story.
Tell us everything.
Tell us everything.
Not just a short answer. It's like, because this is what people need to know, and this is what we want to know. So this
so when I hear your story, the word that I wrote down was alignment.
Alignment. Yes.
Everything aligned with you, for you. You had a vision. God gave you this vision, and even if there was a little bump in the road, like he saw you through it to get approved, like first time out. It's amazing, because it sounds like people do have an issue with that. Maybe they're not filling out the paperwork all fine-tooth comb, but you were able to get it done. I mean, imagine if but you don't get it done, and then those people donating are like, I can't file the taxes because it could have been a mess, but it came all the way through. Yes. And so for me, and then with going to get your master's, like all of that for me was like alignment in the best way possible to continue this vision. And I feel like your mission, your purpose, and everything that you're doing is just like literally so spot on. And every time I hear this story, I'm just like, I'm sitting over here, like trying not to say anything because like we're on Zoom and it's like, if we say something, then like, we're not gonna be able to hear you. And so I'm trying to just like take it all in, but trust me, I want to like give you praises and jump around and like the whole thing.
It's great.
Oh, thank you. It's all good. It's funny. That's sort of what prompted me to write the book, Not Your 9 to 5 Girl, because interviews like this, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just, there's so much. It's like when you ask like one little thing, it's just not that one little thing, like it's things that happened that got to that one little thing. So I tried to capture a lot of that, even the setbacks and some of the challenges that, we've had to face starting this nonprofit. I, captured all of that as much as I could in the book. So
that's it sounds like if folks even want to dabble in nonprofit, it sounds like this is something that you need. First, listen to this interview, obviously.
Right. Exactly.
Clearly. And then also, Not Your 9 to 5 Girl sounds like something that people want. That it's a resource. It's a resource, and you need to pick it up. We'll put it in our link when we put this out. But another, of course, we're gonna make sure it gets out. For sure. People need to know this. One other thing we want to really delve into is just where you're going from here, because you've done so much already in these 12 years, and even looking forward to what you have going on next quarter when it comes to Kids in the Spotlight. But talk about, and you mentioned it on the top end, but I really want you to have this opportunity to share what's the next steps and how can folks join in and be a part of this community that you're building, have built, will continue to build. Just talk about that.
And even in your projects, because I know you talked about the vocational school, and so if you want to talk more about that, we can do that as well.
Absolutely. So it's one, we just launched our own channel on IndieFlix this past December, and these are all, for me, opportunities, one, to create awareness and continue to show the work, because part of our mission is to make sure kids in foster care are not forgotten, that they are seen, heard, validated, celebrated, and even employed. And the best way to do that is to get their work out there to as many viewers as we possibly can, and at the same time create revenue to continue doing the work that we're doing. The book also served as that for me, because all the proceeds from that book goes back into the nonprofit for us to create this, first of all, production studio for a cause. And what the production studio for a cause is, it is an entity where our youth, sort of like a club where our youth can have a space to create that's theirs. They don't have to go through all the red tape trying to figure out stuff. You have a studio that's designated for you, but it's also a studio where industry professionals can come and rent space from us to do television, film, documenting, whatever it is they want to do. And the resources from that goes back into the nonprofit, but also helps with securing job security, because if you shoot at our production studio, the requirement is you have to hire a minimum of 2 of our youth to work on your set. So whether that's holding a boom mic, whether that's script supervisor, whether we have youth that are trained to do any production job that you need. So it's giving back in that way as well while getting your project done. And all of that is for the final journey of creating this boarding academy. Some of the barriers with youth in foster care is homelessness, is lack of transportation, it's lack of stability, it's the lack of support in terms of through meaningful relationships, because a lot of our youth have had people in and out of their lives since the time they were in foster care. So having this community where this is a one-stop resource place for you if you have an interest in the entertainment industry in particular, but having this residential place where you don't have to worry about staying. If you're in our vocational boarding academy, you are here initially from 9th to 12th grade is the vision for the high school. And for the vocational, it's the 2-year process of 18 to 22-year-olds to, basically help them prepare for if they decide to go on to a 4-year college, or if they decide they just want to go straight to work in the entertainment industry, or if they just want to be a voice. If they want to be a social justice change agent and use their pain for purpose. So it's a combination of all of that, preparing these youth for success. We're all about disrupting the school to prison, school to homelessness, school to early pregnancy pipeline. Yeah. Within that particular demographic of youth. And I tell people resources is what we need. Funding definitely is what we need, but we need people with skill sets. We need, educators who know how to create strategic plans to get us from this step to that step, because a lot of it is me just running with the vision as I see it. But there are certain, things administratively on the back end that has to really be secure in order to get to those next steps. So we need people with those skill sets. We need people with marketing skills. We need people, of course, the entertainment industry. I think we've built such a great community of supporters that, that have been with us the entire time we've been in existence. So, I can call it Alfonso Macaulay in a hot second, like, yo, I need a director for this film. You're like, I got you, and they come with their own crew people. So that eliminates us having to go out and find, the cinematographer or the this or the that, because while they're doing this, they're working hands on with our youth because they're training them in the process for those who are not starring in the films. So yeah, there are just so many ways in this, in this area, in this lane that we're on, that people can give back. Because with filmmaking, you need almost every profession you can think of, from being an entertainment attorney, from accounting, from even insurance, the background that I came from. You better have some liability insurance if you're trying to do what we do, and so all of these different areas we feel we can groom youth for. It's not just in front of the camera, it's not just holding the camera, but there's so many different professional opportunities, wardrobe supervisor, hair and makeup, craft services, if you know how to cook, so we want to prepare them for all of these particular jobs.
I love that. That's like amazing. I mean, so basically what I'm hearing, we have donations, but then it's like, if you want to donate your time to Kids in the Spotlight, you guys, with any skill set that you have, please contact Tigé because she got you covered. Yes. I really do want to talk about your Black History Month project that you said you have going on, and it was with Malcolm Jamal Warner, who's Theo from the Cosby Show. If anyone doesn't know, okay, so let us know about that project.
Right, absolutely, girl. The Cosby Show, it's still so relevant today. Like, right, my 8-year-old has watched every episode. And let me tell you a funny story real quickly. So the first time Malcolm Jamal Warner came as a presenter to Kids in the Spotlight, I think Ebony Jewel was like 4 years old at the time. And so she watched the Cosby Show. So she's very familiar with it. And after the show, we're standing up talking to Malcolm Jamal. And so we introduce Ebony, and he's like, "Hi, how are you?" She looks at him and says, "Where's Rudy?" We lost it. It was the funniest thing ever. "Where's Rudy?" It was priceless. So I had to share that, right? But on the 18th, we are hosting a Celebrating Black Youth Storytellers. Again, we have over 75 short films. So we have several films that our youth have written, and particularly our Black youth, that we want to showcase. So on the 18th, we'll be showcasing 2 short films, one called System Failure. And that film is basically about a young boy who's faced to address his inability to succeed in school. And we'll find out what that inability is. And then the second one is Brown, and it's just about what it's like to be brown in America and harassed just because of the color of your skin. So those are the 2 films that we're going to be showing, and Malcolm Jamal Warner is going to be our moderator. So our filmmakers, the youth who wrote the film and some of the youth who starred in those 2 films, are going to be in this QA session where he's going to ask them some questions about their films. What motivated them, why this film, their casting process, ask them about Kids in the Spotlight, ask them about Black history and what it means to them, and just the social unrest that our country, have experienced, just the history of our country, pretty much. So he's going to be asking them those types of questions. And following that event, we have a mixer that's hosted by DreamWorks and NBC Universal, where we're going to have executives from those 2 studios talk on writing, talk on directing, talk about production, talk about how to get jobs in the entertainment industry. They're going to talk about their careers. So we're going to have these breakout sessions that's specifically for kids in foster care, the mixer part of the program. So we're excited about the 18th. The screening and Q&A is everyone.
For folks who, yeah, I was just saying, for folks who, obviously are not attending live, can they see these movies on the channel?
Yes. Go to indieflix.com and type in Kids in the Spotlight. And I think we have about 30 films there now. We're still uploading some of our films. Like I said, we have over 75, so we haven't put all of them up yet. But yes, you can see, I think, System Failure as well as Brown. They're both already on indieflix.com. So please.
Absolutely. Akila and I swear we stay on the same page,
right?
Because that was the question. I was literally I really wanted to know, can we, is it a public event, for the Malcolm Jamal Warner part?
Yes, it is. That's a public event as well. Absolutely. Any and everyone could come on for that event, for the Q&A, interact in the chat box during that time. So yes, we want.
We're gonna get all the details from you to share with everyone, because if we're wondering, we know our viewers also are interested. And speaking of our viewers, real quick, I just want to say a message to them that we work really hard to do this show, and the best way that you can repay us is to share the show with a friend, and to subscribe to our YouTube page, and also on our Apple or Spotify podcast. Everything is at the Black Creators Club. And when you do, please either rate and review or leave a comment on our YouTube page. We will read fan shoutouts on the air. And also, if you have any questions or suggestions for future guests, for topics, let us know too. You can reach us at theblackcreatorsclub@gmail.com. Very simple, very efficient. Talk to us. This was incredible. Such great insights.
I mean, is there anything else that we left out? Is there anything that you want to share with the people, or did we cover it all?
No, I think we pretty much cover it all. I think we covered it all because, as you can tell, I get really excited when I start talking about kids in the spotlight. So we covered it all.
We love it. I'm so happy that we had you here today. We had such an amazing time, such a great energy. Like, I can't wait till this Corona thing's over so we can have people like in the studio with us with like some interactions, and you know, we can have a little bit more, you know, talk.
But I mean, it was as if we were all in the same room right now.
Yeah.
I feel good.
I feel so good. It's just the audio. You know me. I just deal with the audio like. But I'm so happy. Thank you so much, Tigé. You guys, thank you so much for watching and listening out there. You know, you can find me on Instagram at Ebony A. Chapman 12, where I'll be where I also talk to Black entrepreneurs with my Millennial Visionary series. And Akilah, where can I find you?
Yes, you can find me at Akilah Friends, where I'll be talking about business, pop culture, and lifestyle. So at Akilah Friends on all platforms. And Tigé, where can they find you?
Oh my gosh. Well, they can find Kids in the Spotlight quicker than they can probably find me.
Yes.
But Kids in the Spotlight is on Instagram at Kids in the Spotlight. They're also on we're also on Facebook at Kids in the Spotlight, Twitter, Kids in Spotlight, LinkedIn, Kids in the Spotlight. But I do have a personal page on Facebook, Tigé Charity, as well as on LinkedIn, Tigé Charity. You know, y'all hip culture with this Instagram. There's too many platforms. I can't handle them all.
It's
So
not
Listen, you can't, and neither can we. We can't keep up either. We're barely keeping up, okay? We're barely keeping up with the keep up, okay?
I applaud y'all because y'all look like y'all keeping up really well. I love it.
That's it.
Thank you so much for joining us. And remember to always abide by your ABCs.
Always be creating.